When when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rewind to Raw. It's John Pollock and Wai Ting following Raw tonight. How are you?
Not bad, John. Yourself?
Do you want to start off with a trivia question?
Okay.
Who did Seth Rollins pin to win the title when he cashed in the Money in the Bank contract at WrestleMania 31?
He pinned Roman Reigns.
That was the answer up until tonight, because this was the number one moment in the history of Money in the Bank moments. And yet we saw Seth run to the ring, deliver a stomp to Brock Lesnar. The screen goes black as we hear the 3 count, and then Seth is holding up his title. There was not a sight of Roman Reigns in this video.
Wow, that's really interesting. I feel like I would have noticed that, except I admittedly I fast-forwarded through all that bullshit.
Well, they fast-forwarded through Roman Reigns' career in this top 10 countdown. But, you know, it's been noticeable how they have not mentioned this man's name. But to see this, it was quite stunning to see, wow, this is the lengths that we are going to avoid Roman Reigns' existence right now.
How interesting. How interesting. Can you maybe, what is your suggestion about the thought process behind that?
I mean, I don't know. I cannot possibly get into the headspace that is behind this, but obviously there's clearly a direction of no mention of Roman Reigns, and apparently no even visual of Roman Reigns on the show.
But what exactly is the point? Because I don't think omitting Roman Reigns from a moment like that will suddenly help the audience completely forget about this guy's existence. You don't just forget about people.
No, now everyone's noticing and is that much more aware of him.
Well,
so,
yeah. Huh.
Why don't you watch this thing quickly?
Oh, I can picture it in my head. Like you described it perfectly. Oh, you sent it to me?
It's in, just watch this. I just want to see, you know, from your, like, it's just such a WWE, like, it's just so bizarre.
Okay, I'm going to watch it right now.
This is like 20 seconds.
Here's Seth Rollins running to the ramp. He's got a briefcase in his hand. I believe you and I were there. We were present for this moment, weren't we? Yep, there's Brock Lesnar laying face down in the ring. Here's Seth Rollins curb stomping Brock Lesnar. Nobody else in sight. Screen goes black, and Seth Rollins is now the WWE champion. Wow. Interesting.
With a big blackout in the middle of it.
To be fair, in the actual match itself, where was Roman Reigns?
On the mat.
Wait a second,
pinned?
Yeah, you pinned him. You're right.
Dude, he was underneath Seth Rollins getting pinned. He did not pin Brock Lesnar.
Yeah. So he was in the ring underneath, but why? What was the curb stomp to Brock Lesnar about then?
To get rid of Brock.
Oh, and then Roman came in afterwards?
This is after. This is where it becomes the 3-way.
Yeah.
And then Brock is taken out of the match with the stomp.
Yeah.
And then Seth finishes the match pinning Roman Reigns.
Oh, that's really strange. That's worthy of conspiracy.
Well, there were just about however many thousand live witnesses, but I mean, us eyewitnesses, I guess, better try and remember this, because I'm afraid to go on the WWE Network and see what this match looks like.
They tried the Men in Black Roman Reigns here. They tried to use the Men in Black pen here on Roman Reigns. Come on.
Yep.
Can you believe this? I mean, listen, all this is interesting discussion, but it really does call into question when they expect Roman Reigns to come back.
It's got to be, I mean, I imagine he's gone indefinitely. I don't think they would be going to these lengths to. I mean, it's one thing when you don't hear his name being mentioned. I mean, you can at least, you can notice it because it's WWE, and you notice everything when it's intentional. But at the same time, he's not involved in anything. He's not in a story, so why bring him up when you don't know when he's coming back. But this is like crossing that line into this man doesn't exist now.
It's really strange. Yeah. I guess you figure, okay, let's say Roman Reigns is not expected to come back for several months. You know, he is immunocompromised and will continue to be as long as the coronavirus exists in this world and we don't have a vaccine. I feel like that's still no reason to wipe the guy out from history, is it? If anything, you would want to remember him even more. You want to tell people, hey, this is somebody who gave a great deal of his life to this industry, and we choose to keep his memory alive by keeping him in clips like this. It does not seem like okay. The all I'm saying is there more? Is there any quote unquote heat for Roman Reigns skipping out on something like WrestleMania?
Well, I watched this, and I mean, you could probably draw that conclusion. I mean, if you were Roman Reigns watching this at home, would your reaction be, "Oh, what a great video package"? What message do you take from that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak for the man, but certainly it would be intriguing. Yes.
So that was one note from Raw, and I guess we can move on into some other topics as well. Off the top, I do want to mention that up now at store.postwrestling.com, we have not one, but two brand new t-shirts coming from our design king, Robert Pearson, who very much exists in Post Wrestling's history.
Yeah, there's no, sudden fade to black here. Yes, a brand new t-shirt up at store.postwrestling.com. This one for Post Pro Res.
This is true. You can go purchase this shirt now and show your love for Post Pro Res with a new show that is up, that just went up on Sunday with myself and WH Park, featuring all the latest news going on in Japan, a review of the Great Sasuke documentary, and some announcements. We're doing a theme song contest, and we're going to be doing a big show next month. So you can go check all of that out.
I cannot wait for this theme song contest. And
only two rules. Yeah. No chimes and no flutes per WH Park.
Well, I mean, I imagine it to be incredibly difficult to resist the use of chimes or gongs and all that. But nonetheless, I really look forward to seeing some of these responses. When is the deadline?
We've made it for the end of May. So there's a thread up on the forum. You can go check that out. We're asking for submissions to be no longer than 45 seconds. So try and keep them brief, and we'll see. We'll see if this gets a successful response.
Do you guys specify, preferred pronunciation of Puroresu?
Nope. Whatever you want.
All right.
Perez is welcome. Whatever. We'll see what everyone comes up with.
Oh, that's very exciting. And again, store.postwrestling.com for that t-shirt. It's a beautiful, lovely design. Robert Pearson has just been knocking it out of the park with all of these.
A few items and notes. A rather busy week coming up this week at Post Wrestling. On Tuesday night, we're back with our Ask Away mailbag show. It's our monthly dive into the mailbag for members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. I have seen the numbers. They seem to have escalated significantly, so we have a lot of questions to go through on Tuesday night.
A lot. Yeah, we'll probably be here for 5 hours.
Oh, boy. We are going to be doing several shows this week in relation to UFC 249 because, yes, there's a UFC event this Saturday. So Phil and I are going to do a preview on Wednesday and chat about all the topics about this return by the UFC, and then we will be going up with a show Saturday night after the UFC card. And I believe that he'll have more details of this on Wednesday, but I believe he's going to be running the Discord while the pay-per-view is happening on Saturday. So it should be a wild night of fun led by Phil Chairtalk. But tune in Wednesday. We'll have more details about his big party that he has planned.
Phil as well as Eric Marcotte. They'll be in the Discord chat room watching UFC 249 along with everybody. So it's a great place for people to just like watch along with other people. You can do voice chats, you can just do regular text-based chat, and that again you can find the link by going to postwrestling.com.
On Thursday, we've got the Cafe Hangout live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time for all patrons to tune in live. We'll be taking your phone calls. We've got Rewind to SmackDown on Friday night, which will also include our review of the Herb Abrams edition of Dark Side of the Ring. This episode is just going to be nuts.
Well, I haven't seen it yet, and to be quite honest, I don't know much about this topic, so I'm kind of going into this one pretty cold.
Yeah, I think that I'm sure some people have heard the name Herb Abrams, but I would imagine many are going to be learning about him for the first time on this documentary. This is among the most insane individuals to ever come into contact with professional wrestling. And I would definitely steer you towards the Between the Sheets podcast. They did 2 shows on the life of the UWF and Herb Abrams. And they have put up both their shows back to back that they've made available. And it's like 6+ hours on Herb Abrams. And that will certainly give you just one of so many stories of Herb Abrams. Okay. When he launched the UWF, okay, he announced among the names that would be part of the UWF. This was I believe this was summer of 1989 at John Arezzi's fan convention. He said among the names that he was going to be bringing in Blackjack Mulligan to book, and among the wrestlers, Bruiser Brody would be part of the UWF. Now, Blackjack Mulligan was in jail at the time. Bruiser Brody had died a year earlier. And this would not even rank in the top, I would say, 15 stories involving Herb Abrams. So a absolutely insane story is coming out Tuesday night on Dark Side of the Ring. So we will review that on Friday night on Rewind to SmackDown. Saturday, we've got the UFC 249 post show. And then Sunday, it's the Money in the Bank post show with myself and Wai. We're going to be going live for our double espresso and ice cap patrons. So you can look forward to that coming up Sunday night after Money in the Bank. And we will find out if the risk was worth the reward.
Yes, we shall find out. Yes. And the show is going to be live for those particular patrons, but it'll be available and free for everybody after the fact, just as usual. As well, if you are a member of the Post Wrestling Cafe, you also get a bonus review this weekend at some point of the latest editions of the hottest show, John, of the current, just the only wrestling show to see growth at this point. The wrestling show that is immune to the coronavirus, and that is, of course, Season 5 of Total Bellas, where me and Pauline will come back and deliver a bonus review sometime on the Post Wrestling Cafe this weekend. So those are our feeds for you and I, John. But I also wanted to mention that up next, tomorrow on their feed, usually they do a monthly Star Wars review where they've gone back and pretty much have gone through the entire Skywalker saga, except for the last film. So if you want to go back and catch up on all that, you can. But this month, tomorrow, in fact, Davey and Braden, I believe, is Braden on this one? I'm not sure. Okay, but Davey, at the very least, will be reviewing his very favorite show of all time. Any guesses, John?
You mentioned to me that we need to remember to promote this, so you did mention what it is.
Okay.
How about I guess Cheers?
Correct. We got
the John Larroquette show.
No, it's not Cheers. It is Lost. It is Lost. Yeah, a show that have you seen Lost?
No.
Me neither. So don't listen to us talk about it. Instead, listen to Davey Portman talk about it on the Up Next feed. He'll be talking about the pilot, Part 1 and Part 2. This will probably be the beginning of a series for Davey, but you can listen to the first edition for free absolutely tomorrow on the Up Next feed. And you can leave your feedback right now at forum.postwrestling.com.
Yes, so look forward to that on the Up Next feed. Davey is also doing TV reports for us, so Tuesday night he'll have a review of this week's Impact Wrestling episode as well. So that's all our in-house news and notes. Let's get into some actual wrestling news and MMA news here. So the final number for Friday Night SmackDown came in 1,885,000 viewers, falling under 2 million for the first time on Fox, a 0.5 in the demo. And yes, we are SmackDown. It's clearly the pattern now, and even lower than I thought, falling underneath. Last week they did just over 2 million by just the smallest amount, and this week falling. This was this was even worse because the overnight figure came in, and then the final number was even lower, which is not usually the trend you see. Usually, because the overnight figure, it's taking like the top metered markets, and then the final number reflects the entire country. So usually it actually goes up a small amount. This time it went down. But not much more to say about the trend of things, of where they're going. But I think it is a bit more pronounced that if we're going to direct our attention, the fact that this is happening on Fox as opposed to the USA Network, and the fact that, you know, it's hitting, you know, their Raw and SmackDown in the last week both did between 1.8 and 1.9 million viewers. And that's where things are at the moment. And you just wonder with SmackDown, it's just been this 3-week collapse where they have fallen significantly.
At this point, would you say there are any viewers of SmackDown that aren't viewers of Raw?
I mean, for the longest time, they always said that it was such a different audience that was watching the two. But granted, that was years and years ago that WWE was claiming that. I would say now, I'd have a hard time imagining you're having too much of like a distinct audience that is watching these particular shows. Like, I would think like these 1.8 million or so viewers are pretty, like, I can't imagine people that are watching at this length these shows and they're not watching both.
So the advantage of being on network TV is not really there.
It would not appear to be, unless there is such a great amount of Raw viewers that get their fix through Raw that do not tune in on Friday nights. But I mean, SmackDown is available to so many more people. It's in so many more homes. I mean, that in and of itself, it should be attracting that many more people, even in a lean time such as this current situation that they're in.
And what reaction do you see, if any, from the company?
Well, I can't imagine that it's too concerning because today Fox announced like they're putting a 2-hour special on Saturday night with this WWE Greatest Ladder Matches special, which is interesting on several fronts. Number one, it's at a time when the WWE audience feels like it is very depleted. They are doubling down and putting, this is 2 hours on Fox. This is not on FS1. This is on regular Fox. And it's head to head with a pretty big ESPN prelims card with the 249 fights. Like, that's got Donald Cerrone and Anthony Pettis on it, and they're going head to head with this Greatest Ladder Matches compilation, which I'm interested to see how it does, because they were really pushing the fact, like, not just the ladder match concept, but Austin and Rock, and putting in, you know, big names here on network television. But you know, I imagine this one doing in the, like, I don't see this being, like, if this hits 1 million viewers, I'll be surprised.
How did the WrestleMania replays do recently?
I'd have to look back. Like, they were fairly low, but they were, as I recall, over 1 million by the end of time that they stopped doing those, like 2008, I want to say 2009.
Right. Is this the first time Fox has done one of these?
This is the first time we've seen one of these on Fox. Yeah, we've seen plenty on FS1.
Interesting.
What else do we have? Some injury news from the WWE. Kevin Owens did an interview with RDS, and he stated that he is dealing with an ankle injury right now, but also mentioned the fact that WWE is not pressuring people to be doing these shows if he doesn't want to, and he does want to be home with his family, but mentioned with the ankle injury, it occurred during the match with Seth Rollins at some point at WrestleMania, and he is going to need an x-ray to determine the extent of the injury. And it wasn't exactly said when this interview was conducted. You would think if he needs an x-ray that he hasn't waited a month to get an x-ray, so it could be a case that this was done over the last week or two. But nonetheless, an ankle injury wouldn't seem to be something where he's out the longest amount of time. But I guess the other caveat is how comfortable is he doing the shows right now, because he did kind of give that impression that he wants to be home right now with his family.
Yeah, seems like it, you know, at the very least, seems like it's at least a bit of both that's keeping him away, you know, wanting to fix this ankle, but also seemingly seems like he wants to be with his family at this point in time, which is, of course, understandable. So, At some point, though, I imagine everybody will be required to come back.
Jimmy Uso suffered an injury on the same card, actually. They were both on that same night of WrestleMania. And Jimmy Uso, that was his last match, so this is where we presume it occurred. He's got a knee injury. I don't know specifically what type of knee injury it is, but the timetable is 6 to 9 months that he'll be gone. So that is a significant injury for him and takes him out for probably the rest of the year. And I guess also the question arises, like, what happens with Jey Uso during that time? Because it's often the case in WWE for tag teams that when one goes down, they kind of stop using the other one. We've seen that Razor is hurt right now, and there's been no usage of Akam.
It's difficult for me to see like a Jey Uso solo thing or him with another tag team partner. I mean, if it was Jimmy, I could see them pairing him with Naomi and, you know, working some sort of storyline like they did with the Mandy Rose thing for a time. But Jey Uso solo, I really just see him sitting out while waiting this out. And who knows, maybe by the time that his brother's ready, maybe this whole thing will be over. I mean, that's certainly the hope, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it would, to me, if you had a comfortable downside, now, believe me, I don't want to like minimize an injury. Injuries suck, but of all times at the moment, I mean, if you're going to get hurt, now would be a time where it's like, do I really want to be doing these shows? And like if I had some like nagging injury that I needed to get taken care of that required some kind of surgery, I mean, now would probably be the time you want to take advantage of that. It's, you know,
do I Scottie Pippen this season?
Well, that's the part of it. Do you want to?
Am I going to let you mess up my summer?
Oh, that might be it. Like, get it out of the way now, and maybe you can enjoy a bit of your summer. I mean, no one's going to be enjoying their summer at this rate, but anyway, that's the state of those two as well. What else do we have here for the UFC this week? Mark Raimondi has done some fantastic reporting on everything involving like the regulation side for this weekend's first of 3 cards in Jacksonville. So some notes here from a piece that I linked to in today's update that Mark has put out. So here are some of the situations that these fighters are in. Uriah Hall, who's going to be fighting on the card Saturday, he is currently living inside the Fortis MMA gym in Texas, sleeping on an air mattress to prepare for this. Michelle Watterson has one sparring partner to get ready for her fight, that being her husband. Most fighters are going to be arriving in Jacksonville either Tuesday or Wednesday. Donald Cerrone is going to be arriving. Apparently, he's going to get into his RV, and he has told them he will arrive there just in time for the weigh-ins on Friday.
Oh, my God.
UFC apparently is going to be doing COVID-19 testing. Mark's reporting that they're going to do the diagnostic swab test as well as an antibody test. In addition to that, there will be daily screenings and medical tests conducted. And they may be doing something where they stagger the times that everyone comes on Friday to weigh in, so you don't get that glut of people coming first thing and you have all these people standing around waiting. And the arena is going to be sterilized in between shows, which are May 9th, May 13th, and May 16th. They're at the in Jacksonville at the arena there. So those are some of the protocol that's in place. But I guess the big one is that it appears there will be COVID-19 testing going on for fighters and for cornermen.
So again, was this stuff made public knowledge, or was it like found by someone?
Well, I mean, Mark reported on this, and he also spoke with an official in Jacksonville who kind of echoed the same about there being testing. But this did not come directly from the UFC.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, this stuff is really good to know. I think it puts your mind at ease if you are somebody who is a fan and planning on watching these shows anyway. I would assume that some of us might feel less guilty about watching something like this, knowing that the company is taking every precaution to ensure the fighter's safety. And as such, you know, I feel like it would be in their interest to try to let as many people know about this stuff as possible. But to know that they're doing actual swabbing and as well antibody testing, I think is more than I personally expected. I also, I mean, the criticism is always there that are we still encountering a shortage of these tests? I guess I'm not really as up on it anymore, but are we, John? Do you know?
I mean, yeah, there's still like an issue with tests and such, and I know that I think that is. I don't know what that maybe the general level of concern or reaction is going to be that these fighters and these cornermen are going to be receiving tests, but I feel it would have been much more of a backlash maybe 3 weeks ago than it is today. Mm-hmm. But I mean, like there still is the need for tests and such, and that was kind of brought up as well. Like a concern of the NBA's was, the idea that the testing that may be required. Do we want to have that kind of, we're taking up these tests that could be used for other people.
Yeah. But I guess the alternative is. The alternative is to not do the fights, which I think would still be responsible. But Jesus, this fucking country really needs its sports. This world really needs its sports. And if
what I have learned from all of this, if you are big enough, there are separate rules when you are a certain level. Like I did not even like put this all together, but like this Money in the Bank match that has been taped, there was a stay-at-home order instituted in Connecticut back on March 23rd, and it's been extended until May 20th. That's when they're going to try and start their like phase-in approach. But you like flew people in to do this match, and that's just another thing in all of this that you question. And again, it's just there's different rules. There's different rules for different companies.
Yeah. But to know the backstory of a lot of these fighters trying to like navigate their way through this whole thing in order to get ready for a fight, that to me is, it sounds like it'll be the greatest edition of UFC Embedded ever.
I don't think we're going to get Embedded this week.
I know, unfortunately.
What kind of quality do you expect of these fights on, not just the fights on Saturday, but issues with some of these fighters making weight under these circumstances, like not ideal training camps at all.
Yeah.
I'm bracing myself like that some are going to really struggle making weight, and are we going to get optimal performances like conditioning wise, especially for, you're talking about 2 title fights of 4 fighters that are training to go 5 rounds. It's that's just one of many questions of what we're going to see on Saturday.
When you're talking about fighting at this level or any sort of athletic performance at this level, you are talking about like a very precise science that a lot of these fighters have to go through to get ready, to get into like, the exact condition that they need to be for a fight like this. And certainly I think the biggest risk is the weight cut. I would not be surprised if you had a number of fighters, have difficulty or even just not make weight. Gas tank will certainly be a different question. But another element of this though is that like I think fighters, they're remarkable people that can like, when their backs are pressed against the wall, they will find really like they might even be more motivated now, knowing that they're already at a handicap. How can I take this more seriously? How can I ensure that everything is perfect despite everything not being perfect? And will they see this as like almost like a new creative kind of like unique fight to survive type of opportunity? This is more of like a kind of like a mentality of combat sports type of discussion, but I find it all so fascinating.
UFC 249, the risk is worth the reward.
Really, it's way more appropriate for this show, isn't it?
Well, tonight we're going to get promos about potentially plunging to one's death. So, there's risk all around, I guess. That's going to take us into Raw, postwrestling.com for all your latest news. And Monday's episode of Raw kicked off with the MVP Lounge. And he said that things got out of control last week. By the way, John, I just wanted to stop you. This was taped last week, right? Yeah, this was taped a week ago. Okay. So, just to get everyone's time straight. There's no new episodes of NXT and SmackDown being taped this week. They were all taped last week, and then next Monday they're doing Raw and SmackDown Monday, and then another Raw and SmackDown on the Tuesday.
And Money in the Bank is taped as well.
The match has been taped. I literally do not know what the state is, like what they're doing with the other matches. I just know that the ladder match portion was taped.
Interesting. Okay, so the pay-per-view matches themselves, we don't know.
No, like I'm presuming they're happening on Sunday, but I do not know that for a fact.
Okay.
So anyway, MVP brings out the female participants on Raw for the ladder match. We have Asuka, Shayna Baszler, and Nia Jax. The highlight of these entrances, and probably this segment, was Nia Jax walking out to her music while Asuka is bobbing her head, lip-syncing to Nia Jax's theme.
She has really found a way to just be entertaining in a variety of ways, without having to really speak a proper, cut a long English promo. She's managed to just convey her personality in using body language and just doing, I don't know, interesting, funny things like that.
Nia said that she is relentless. That is all she needs. Asuka yells at her in Japanese. MVP brought up an interesting fact here, alerting both Shayna and the audience at home that Shayna is a cage fighter, which I think is this show's version of The Dentist. Shayna takes the microphone and says, "Opera non verba."
Mm-hmm.
She does her talking with her action.
That's what that means in Latin?
Well, I spent, full disclosure, I never took Latin, but
where the fuck do they even offer Latin anymore? You went to
not
TV
in Canada,
school, John. Why would you? That wasn't even an option.
I had to take French. French was mandatory up until grade 9.
Of course, but Latin is not an official language in any what country?
Opera non verba means deeds, not words.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess what she said sounded more appropriate for wrestling.
It's funny when I looked this up, opera non verba, the example here is someone that has inserted this. The motto of the gym where my 16-year-old son and I study mixed martial arts is opera non verba.
Deeds, not words?
Deeds, not words. But isn't that weird? Like a mixed martial arts gym has this.
Maybe they had Shayna's translation. Maybe that's where Shayna trained too.
It could have been. I'm trying to click on this to see maybe where the gym is, but I don't think it says the specific gym. But
so
there you go.
What did Shayna say again? I do my fighting with my fists?
She says I do my talking with my actions.
I do my talking with my actions. Okay. All right, cool.
Asuka did her talking with her talking by screaming. And Nia just sat and watched, and then Baszler and Asuka attacked her, and MVP had to separate Baszler and Asuka, and that was it.
Yeah, I thought the segment kind of sucked. Now, you had basically 3 people speaking 3 different languages here, and including Shayna with Latin.
Yeah, we did. We had the Latin representation.
And, I didn't think any of them were really able to generate any sort of meaningful grudge between one another. Instead, it just came across as, generic posturing. And then
in fairness, can you imagine Shayna cutting a promo about being on top of a roof? I mean, this match is so counter to everything about this woman's character. It would have been something else to hear her have to, spit words on climbing the corporate ladder and the risk is worth the reward on top of WWE headquarters.
Well, you know what? Soon enough, John, in a matter of weeks, you're probably going to get MMA fighters cutting promos about fighting on an island. So what sounds more ridiculous?
That's right? you once again have taught me.
But I was disappointed that they didn't use this time to actually build some story. You have so many stories here. You have, the rivalry between Asuka and Shayna Baszler. Both of them were the respective, I would say, queens of their eras of NXT. Asuka was that person. Then Shayna kind of took her place. And now this is the first match that these two can really, test themselves against one another in a meaningful way. You have Nia Jax here, who's wrestling her first major event since double knee surgery. Can she prove that she's as dominant as she once was? Or just simply, God forbid, John, talking about why you want to win Becky Lynch's championship.
What are you talking about, Wai?
Ridiculous,
It's about climbing the corporate ladder.
Yeah, it's absolutely it's a foreign concept. But instead, we just had like 3 people like make noises with their mouths, and that was it. So I didn't think they achieved that much here.
God, if this was a year ago, they should have started off the Go Home Raw with George Barrios in the middle of the ring to explain the significance of the corporate ladder, and he does it in George Barrios speak.
And then the
ecosystem you will be competing in this fiscal. I'm going to provide a little bit of color for this match here, but not that kind of color. There's none of that.
Barrios would be a great, like, I mean, if they were still doing heel GMs or just a manager, wouldn't he be? Wouldn't he be?
Him and Corbin would be awesome.
He'd be perfect. Yes.
Just imagine him with Heyman, dueling promos.
Wow,
that would be fantastic stuff. I do hope one day we hear from George Barrios again. He's probably got like the most ironclad NDA in history, but man, he's the white whale out there.
There'll be a 30 for 30 at some point.
Yeah. George Barrios. He'll be doing like maybe he'll be Starcast guest panel one year.
Wow, that would be crazy.
Comes in with like a shaved head, his hair's gone.
Maybe he'll have a pro wrestling tea store.
Yeah. Comes in with like his stocks. It's like, look how much I walked out of there with. I climbed the corporate ladder and I jumped off.
You got pushed off real quick. Anyway.
Samoa Joe's back with Tom Phillips and Byron Saxton. So Jerry Lawler flew all the way to Florida for this latest trip, literally to be in the ring for a minute before Drew told him, why don't you get out of here for the contract signing?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, unless he was just hanging out anyway.
Just chilling in Florida?
Maybe. I don't know.
For weeks? He's reopened his restaurant in Memphis.
Right now?
Yeah.
Oh,
they're adhering to social distancing rules, but yeah.
All right. Is the food good?
Never been.
Kind of curious.
Go on Yelp.
What's it called? Jerry Lawler Restaurant?
Oh, I can't remember what the name of it is off the top of my head. It's like a barbecue joint.
King Jerry Lawler's Hall of Fame Bar and Grill.
That's it.
All right.
Any reviews?
3 out of 5 stars. 74 reviews, and it's a $2 sign, John. Okay. Well, listen, here's a 4-star review. Claudia B said, oh, sorry, this is a different review. Okay. This first one here from Jenna W. 3 stars. The music was amazing and is the only reason I'm giving it 3 stars. The service,
the music, dude, that's a low bar when the music is carrying the review.
Says the service here is terrible. Our server was trash. Just note that if you get served a flat, nasty beer, you still have to pay for it. They aren't allowed to get you a different one. Every place that we stopped on our bar hop adventure tonight was fun, but this place is a place we will remember as a disappointment.
Oh come on.
People think we're like negative. Have you been on Yelp lately, everybody? Here's one from Kyle from Kansas City. Another 3-star review. The nachos were okay. The sweet potato fries were dusted with powdered sugar and cake with syrup, like pancake syrup to dip in. The boneless chicken strips were good and came with fried potatoes. A bar/restaurant/live entertainment place with okay service and okay food. Overall, a 3-star place.
Well, he'll probably take it. That's fine.
Let me do one more.
Yep,
this one, a 1-star review.
Oh, no.
From Jeremy K. in Oakland. On my last night in Memphis, my friend and I came here for dinner. However, despite the fact that the waitress gave us menus, she tells us that the kitchen closed 10 minutes earlier. Not even 5 minutes before she came to our table, she served a table their food. I do not understand why she gave us menus in the first place if she knew that the kitchen was closed. Also, the bar was packed with patrons on a holiday weekend. I'm shocked that a bar restaurant would close their kitchen at 8 on a Sunday night. I was kind of bummed because my friend who lives there recommended that we go there on my last night here.
Wow, these are all tourists as well. I guess no one in Memphis wants to degrade the great Jerry Lawler.
And then to be fair, there are some 5-star reviews, there's some 4-star reviews. It's a solid mix. I mean, I would, if I was in Memphis, I would go, but not right now.
Well, no Lawler on this show. We started things off with the Last Chance Money in the Bank Gauntlet Match. At the start of this, we were told we don't know who's in this, and we don't know how long this is going to go.
Could have been.
I thought it could be the whole show, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, you're entering a match. How many do I have to win? Don't know. Just keep going. When Titus O'Neil came out, I was like, this is going to be a long, long match. So Bobby Lashley comes out. He does not have Lana in his corner. He spears Titus in 51 seconds. Out comes Akira Tozawa, and Lashley just laughs at this idiot. Tozawa gets in a missile drop kick. Lashley just dusts off his shoulder, spears him, and pins Akira Tozawa of NXT's Cruiserweight title tournament in 21 seconds.
Oh my God, that doesn't mean anything, John. I mean, Titus O'Neil is higher ranked than Akira Tozawa. Why
was Tozawa even in this? All this was why would you waste your time on NXT? That's what this is on Raw.
I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but it feels like there are very different people booking the NXT Cruiserweight Championship tournament.
You think?
And the Raw and Money in the Bank Gauntlet match. And I mean, Akira Tozawa just happens to have two jobs. You know, at one job he's like, you know, sort of like a senior manager. Another job he's just a cashier.
This just tells me, though, there's no synergy between the two. Because why was this necessary to have this 21 seconds inserted in this?
To add to Lashley's numbers, Tozawa was probably there. I don't know. They have a list, and he's on the list.
Well, Velocity is on Wednesday nights at 8 on the USA Network. Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, time to go Broadway. We went a minute 41 here. This featured Shelton Benjamin leapfrogging a spear before he got speared and then was pinned.
He was given a bit more offense than the others.
Humberto Carrillo was his fourth opponent, and Carrillo hit him with a missile drop kick and his moonsault. But then Carrillo gets tossed off the top and attacked in the corner. Lashley shoves referee Sean Bennett and gets disqualified in 2:24, spears Carrillo, leaving him for dead, and that was the end of Bobby Lashley's night.
I enjoy the fact that they gave Lashley something. You know, he leaves this gauntlet match at least with something to brag about. And I thought that, you know, like him going through all the jobbers, I thought it was actually effective. I thought this finish was really lame, unfortunately. I understand you wanting to retain the value that you've built for Lashley. I just wish the DQ was a bit more logical and creative. Because him just shoving a referee, he just looks like an idiot for doing all that hard work and then costing himself the match for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, maybe give Humberto the leapfrog spot and Lashley accidentally spears the ref or something. Something fun.
Yeah. I mean, that wouldn't be a cause for DQ. But
what do you mean? He spears the ref
by accident.
Still attacking an official.
Something rather than, you know, him like just getting so angry he shoves the ref. Like that to me is just lazy.
So Humberto Carrillo took on Angel Garza. Byron notes that these two have a long history together. Yes, they're cousins. The pants came off. They cut to the back here.
Some cousins have short history together. You know.
Well, these two gentlemen are like not 5 years old, so I think they have a pretty notable history.
Yeah, I guess 5-year-old.
I'm not saying a quality history, but a history, yes.
Yeah.
You have a long history with your family.
Like I have cousins that I've never even met.
Okay, well, these two apparently have met because they had a grudge from the get-go.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Lana is telling Bobby, if I had been out there, I could have done something for you. And Lashley says, not now. Maybe these two have to like quarantine with one another. And now they are just
that's a thing.
Driving each other crazy.
Have you heard that? Like the divorce rate is apparently like really like higher now in some places because of this pandemic.
Well, maybe that's where Lashley and Lana are headed towards.
But they're not quarantining. They get to go to work. They're traveling every week, pretty much.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, theirs is worse, really, because they have to work with one another. They see each other 24/7, no matter what.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this is not the quarantine and wouldn't be, it would be no break from the norm.
Yeah.
It's all Garza here. Carrillo fought back. There was a quebrada by Garza for a 2 count, and then as he's going for the wing clipper, it's countered with a sunset roll-up, and Carrillo pins him. Crowd just was, they popped big here for the big baby face come from behind victory.
Huge, yeah. Miraculously. It was almost like
they were really behind Carrillo here as the underdog.
It was almost like they were dormant for the past, 3 months. But here it was just like Austin Rock.
Yes. I have nothing to add here. These were just
listen,
matches.
So I mean, you can divide this match into pretty much 2 chapters, and one was the Bobby Lashley chapter where he basically just squashed everybody, and you have the Humberto Carrillo chapter where he also squashed everybody, but his squashes were all 10-minute matches where he fights from behind and then eventually sneaks out a victory, and this was just one of those.
Yeah, maybe because we didn't have a crowd rallying behind him. I just thought it was so much of Humberto just getting beaten to death. It was just, I had no reason to get behind this guy because he was just getting thrown around, and it was that too much selling, where you're dying.
You also have no reason to get behind him because you haven't seen him in like 2 months, dude. When was the last time we saw this guy?
He's been off for a long time.
There's been zero story attached to him. Like, he's pretty much been completely forgotten at this point. And yeah, I completely agree with you. I think the pace here, I do understand, because in these gauntlet matches, you have to pace the guy who is supposed to be there for like 40 minutes or something. But as a result, like, we've seen them in this current era get away from like their typical formula of like doing the long rest hold, playing to the crowd, that type of bullshit. Like, they've instead been doing really fast, X Division style, like cruiserweight style type of matches. But here, because whether to, save the dude's cardio or whatever, they had to do the long rest holds. And as a result, like, you just had way more dead pauses. And I really felt it.
Austin Theory was out next, and he's in control. He's kicking away at the ribs, has this this waist lock applied. Then he leaps off the middle rope, Carrillo does during his comeback, and gets nailed with a forearm. Theory hits a superplex, but Carrillo rolls and cradles him to catch him with the cover in 425. Like, this was like 95% Austin Theory, and then his leg gets hooked at the end.
Yeah, it's the same match.
During this commercial break, they announced Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville to save SmackDown this Friday.
Yeah, ratings-wise, how did that do? Do you know?
Which?
That segment, I guess.
Well, Mandy and Sonya is this Friday.
I guess I meant last Friday. Do we know the breakdown?
I don't know. I don't know what the quarters were. But I mean, the second hour was lower than the first, but that's every week.
Okay.
Humberto Carrillo is ready for one more opponent, and out comes AJ Styles. Tom yells, "We thought we saw a ghost."
This guy's supposed to be either a ghost or a zombie, is what I expected.
Well, he confirmed he was neither. Didn't come out with dirt. It's kind of like AJ, just like, got out, had a shower, and he's back.
Would you have expected the dirt to still be on his face?
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted.
It's kind of like when Kane, when he finally unmasked, his face after like 30 years still had ash on it.
Exactly, it's traumatic.
Like, he hadn't washed his face in 30 years. He went straight from being burnt to wearing a mask.
So Styles goes right to the midsection, works on the leg, weakens the leg, and then Carrillo hits a DDT. Styles flips over the turnbuckle. They readjust, and then there's an inside cradle by Carrillo for a 2 count, and then pump handle into a gutbuster by AJ, calf crusher, and Carrillo taps out at 5:54. AJ is going to the Money in the Bank ladder match, and then he beat the shit out of Carrillo some more because I want to see this guy sell a bit. So he wrapped his leg around the post, and this dude was closer to death than AJ was at the end of the Boneyard match.
Yeah, definitely. It was all that was missing was him reaching his hand out of some dirt. But this, like we said, I thought this was pretty dull. Unfortunately, at no point did I really feel any sort of sympathy for Humberto Carrillo. Just I mean, we're rather unfamiliar with him at this point. But it was made notable by the surprise AJ return, which, I mean, really wasn't a surprise if you were paying attention to postwrestling.com.
Well, there you go. Then AJ cut this promo. I swear, these are the words that came out of his mouth. His first words back. I'm not a zombie. I'm not a ghost. Yeah, I got buried. So what? That doesn't mean I lost. There are no rules in a Boneyard match. I love that he's protesting the outcome of this, like on his record. He has seized an opportunity. I'm now in the most unique Money in the Bank match, and I will do anything to win, even if I have to throw Rey or Alistair Black off of WWE headquarters. So be it. AJ's coming to kill.
Yes. I'm
not a zombie. I'm not a ghost.
Yeah. I mean, he's not wrong. You know, I suppose like a buried alive match that was shot in a cinematic format, it shouldn't affect your sports record. But it's disappointing because that was such a big match, and I think at the very least, when you see a guy literally get buried alive, you would expect some sort of change in character, some sort of change in demeanor, even, you know, at the very least his look. But, you know, he came out of that with no injuries, doesn't even seem to have any sort of renewed motivation to get revenge on anybody. It's almost as if it never happened, and that to me is a little disappointing because I want to think back to that match as a significant event.
Yeah, I think that, you know, this, like, I imagine they didn't want to keep him off TV too long, but to me, like, just having some vignettes to start running, like, what happened to AJ, like, that was one of the you know, cliffhangers, if you want to call it that, at the end of that WrestleMania, like, how to bring this guy back, and it was, you know, he's back. He's just back. And at the very least, yeah, like a change in character, like a darker version of AJ, something like even his colors are different. Maybe he's in like all black or something. You know, just anything that represents a significance coming out of that match.
Sure. Yeah. You know, this was a chance, I think, for him to cut a bigger promo, like talking about any sort of character change as a result of a match like that, talking about the loss of his brothers in
I thought that they would go that direction, that like, I'm back, but not all of us made it out of the Boneyard, like something to that effect, where it was like that was the end of these two. He lost his brothers in this match,
some type of lasting consequence, you know, to make me feel like my time invested was not for nothing.
Then we had our top 10 list that I guess they've fallen in love with on these shows. Tonight we had the top 10 Money in the Bank moments. Going from number 10, we had AJ powerbombing. First of all, you just tell me yes or no if you remember some of these moments, okay? Because I'd be saying no on many of these. AJ powerbombing Kevin Owens onto a ladder.
That specific moment?
That's what was number 10.
I don't remember that specific moment.
Like, it wasn't even an outcome. It was just that spot. Number 9 was the women's. It was a moment from the women's Money in the Bank ladder match in 2018 where Ember Moon landed a reverse cross off the middle rope onto Sasha on top of a ladder.
No, but I'm a bad person to ask, John, because I don't remember anything.
Okay, well, these were the top 10 moments of all time for Money in the Bank. Number 8, Orton cashing in on Daniel Bryan. That was at SummerSlam 2013. Lesnar winning the Money in the Bank last year, and his love with like early 90s hip hop afterwards.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was great.
Number 6 was Shelton's spot from WrestleMania 22, scaling the ladder and diving to the floor. We were at several of these.
Yeah,
we were there for this.
I'll take your word
Number
for
5. Number 5 was Bayley cashing in last year to beat Charlotte Flair. Not only was I watching this and like legitimately surprised, I was like, oh, Bayley won the title that way. Dude, I don't even remember Bayley winning Money in the Bank last year. So I don't know what that goes to say about my fading memory.
It's clear to me, and again, I fast forwarded through all these, so I might be proven wrong as you go through the list, but it's clear to me that they're focusing only on people that are currently on the roster.
Yes. And that you can literally see on the show.
Yeah.
Each week. Number 4 was Andrade delivering a sunset bomb to Finn Balor off the ladder onto another ladder. I do remember that spot. It was pretty horrific from last year. Number 3 was Edge cashing in at the first Money in the Bank, the New Year's Revolution, cashing in the first Money in the Bank briefcase in 2006. Number 2 was Jeff Hardy putting Edge through a ladder at WrestleMania 23. And number 1, Seth Rollins cashing in his Money in the Bank and defeating a Ghost to become the new champion in 2015.
It was a great memory. I remember it like it was just last week. Yeah,
this felt like WWE's Infinity War here at the end. Seth comes out. He meets with Charlie in the ring. He's got confidence in Murphy tonight, taking on Drew McIntyre, and we got the same droning promo from Seth that we've gotten every week. Drew's a fighter. He's a warrior. He's an honorable man, but he's not a leader. He will sacrifice himself for his destiny. And this just went on for like 4 minutes and was of no consequence.
You know, I did enjoy the thread Seth kind of began here, getting into a little bit more detail about some of the unknown or unseen rigors and responsibilities of being a champion that he doesn't feel Drew is ready for. Like, it feels like he's got the beginnings of like a really interesting storyline, but he really, and we're talking about the go home show here, so he hasn't really, by the end of this build, ever really gotten into the meat of it all, which I'm a little disappointed by. Because it just seemed to continue to descend into like a pretty generic promo by the end of this. It feels like he's got like sort of a very superficial caricature of what a cult leader is, but it does not feel fleshed out at all. But it feels like this would be a character that would be really good in a developmental, system, like an FCW or something. Someday it might have been ready. Someday it might have been, a Bray Wyatt type of character. But in this incarnation, I really don't think it's ready for primetime national TV. And it's been kind of painful watching Seth continue to workshop this in a primitive form week after week on TV. Especially like without a crowd being there to let him know what's working or what's not working. I just don't really, I haven't really been seeing that much improvement. And it's just, it's difficult because I don't know how much more of it we're going to get before, it can suddenly miraculously be ready for TV.
I think this is much more Seth than it is the actual character, because I think that this is deep down, I think that this is something that could be communicated in a much clearer way, because at its core, he's explaining that when you're the champion, when you're the top guy, everyone's trying to cut you down, and while you're on the rise, everyone's behind you, and when you're on top of the mountain, they just want to push you off. And there's a lot of realism in there that Seth could draw upon from last year and how he was champion and he ended up being, torched by people. I think that there's a lot he could really dive into here, and it's like this is a bit of a leap out there, but very similar to the last episode of The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, talking about the same thing. And that in this culture, like, we have our celebrities, and then it's like the inevitable fall and finding fault, and almost like an obsession of finding that fault. And I think there's a lot of ways that Seth could really draw from this, and he's kind of experienced all this, that it should strike a chord with him. But I get none of that in these promos. And I think he's trying to somewhat explain this by the fact that, the burden of being the champion and all that comes with that. But I just think he's totally missing any kind of relatability or communicating this in his voice. It's just like he's doing this weird cult thing that it doesn't work at all.
Yeah, the character is unfortunately a little too over the top, and I don't think the performance is really there on the level of I hate to, again, compare it to it, but something like Bray Wyatt, who I think does the cult leader thing a lot better because he's a better character performer. Whereas I think Seth is a guy who comes across a lot better when he tries to speak as himself. And yeah, like you said, there's a great deal of real story that I think could be far more authentic and delivered far more effectively without all the gimmicky stuff, attached to it.
Shane Thorne and Brendan Vink are backstage, and we're literally about to have a conversation about wrist tape when MVP thankfully interrupted this engaging dialogue. And he said that, well, he went to go give the speech that Herb Brooks gives in Miracle. And they note the reference. And they're not going to lose to Ricochet or Cedric Alexander again. And they will have the opportunity to share what it's like to lose to them.
Yeah, so it appears these guys are, really getting a real push, and it's not like, they're just a 1 week type of thing.
No.
Here they're getting a chance to speak, and my first impressions of both guys, I've seen Shane Thorne before. I haven't really seen too much of his, either singles run or him, I don't even know how much he's really gotten to speak in NXT. But here getting both guys, showcase a little bit of personality. I get the sense Thorne is still struggling to kind of find his own voice, but Vink shows great confidence, really like his, nice, slow, confident delivery. And he's got great size and presence, so I can see him doing well almost immediately.
Then they ran a promo, and they ran 2 of these tonight about Edge and Randy Orton, and will the hunter become the hunted? And they just said Edge, Randy Orton next week on Raw. And we never had the announcers react to this or push that they're appearing next week. But is that how you took it? Because I watched this and I wasn't quite sure. Are they on Raw next week or are they re-airing this match next week?
I took it to mean that they're at the very least, scheduled for a confrontation. I think it would be disappointing if it was just a match. I feel like they would say that, wouldn't they?
Well, I don't know if they... given where they are right now, if it's just re-airing the match.
Oh, God.
And
that was the only bad match of that show.
Well, again, it was weird because I figured we'd hear Tom saying next week or just making it clear that they're coming next. With Becky Lynch, they made it clear she is coming next week to confront the winner of Money in the Bank. I watched this literally 3 times and it was just Edge, Orton, next week on Raw.
Well, you could assume that when they were taping this, they perhaps didn't have official confirmation that was going to happen, and that this might have been something they added at the last minute. I guess I was left confused about whether or not they were re-airing the WrestleMania match, having a brand new match next week, or I think perhaps the more likely scenario, just having a confrontation next week.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm sure they would... If they are going to be there next week, I think they would make that pretty clear. And I think most people did read it that way. So maybe I'm just looking too much into this.
Well, I think it was purposely vague to let you think that. I don't know.
Well, if they're there next week, I wouldn't want to make it vague. If it's re-airing the match, and it's also been 30 days, so that also could be a factor in, they had to potentially wait 30 days to air this.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, we shall see.
Yeah, we'll see next week. Murphy gets interviewed by Charlie, and she asks why he is so loyal to Rollins. He says Seth took him under his wing when it benefited both of them. He's learned and developed so that one day he can be on Rollins' level, or one day be better. And they both know that this day will come.
It's a little unfortunate that this whole thing, and, really before that with the Authors of Pain injury, is kind of derailed whatever faction Seth Rollins was trying to build with Murphy and everybody. Right now, it really does not feel like it's a faction. And that's kind of coupled with, intermittent appearances from both Murphy and Seth Rollins. But Murphy certainly stood to gain the most, I would say, of anybody by his association with Seth. And he's still a presence on the show, but does not feel as big of a deal as he was in those weeks since he joined.
He also added, Seth thinks he can beat Drew. I know I can. So we'll find out. Ricochet, Cedric Alexander against Brendan Vink and Shane Thorne. Thorne elbows Alexander off the apron, and he crashes to the floor. Ricochet comes in, Rana off the top to Thorne. Then they start double-teaming Thorne, and Alexander hits a tornado DDT. Vink makes the save. Flying knee is delivered to Vink, and the finish gets thwarted. Alexander and Ricochet trying to hit it on Thorne. Thorne then takes out Anderson. I keep saying Anderson. With Alexander with a cannonball, and it ends with a running boot by Brendan Vink, pinning Ricochet in 4:32. And they really put this win over with Vink getting the cover.
Yeah, with Vink being the one that got the win, so it might suggest that they see him as the at least maybe the bigger star of the group as well. So the idea is that now with MVP's coaching, Vink and Thorne are a better team because this time they were able to beat these two.
I guess, like, they didn't even put MVP out there with them.
Yeah, but he quoted Miracle.
Well, that must have obviously been the difference maker, that and the wrist tape.
Sure, yeah, but maybe that's just his coaching method. You know, he'll like quote a famous movie every week, and that'll like suddenly they'll just win the championship.
Sure, sounds like a great idea. So we have another team in the mix here, and I wonder like where Ricochet and Cedric Alexander ultimately fit into this tag division, because they were building them up for a time, and now it seems like Vink and Thorne they're kind of giving more focus to.
I mean, they were giving them airtime. They gave them like wins over jobbers, but at no point did they really build them up. You know, like they are at this level where they are a lot of fun, but I don't think they're a team to be taken seriously because they lose to like, you know, the real serious teams like the Viking Raiders.
The Street Profits came out and cut a promo before their match. Dawkins talks about their history at the Performance Center. This is where they met, where they became brothers, and apparently we've been chasing the Viking Raiders since they got here. Well, tonight we get them. They promoted that next week Becky Lynch would be on the show to confront the Money in the Bank winner. They never once mentioned her appearance on Billions last night.
Interesting. Well, again, like, could that be something, you know, due to them taping this last week?
I mean, that to me is a pretty easy insert. I think it's more so a fact that it's not an NBC show, that maybe that was their hang up over it, but it just seemed a little odd. Like this, she got like notable press for this. This is not some like nothing show either that she was on. And seemed to get a lot of praise for. It was just strange that they didn't make any mention of it. But anyway, the Street Profits and Viking Raiders, non-title match. We had a long match between these two teams. It included Dawkins getting several hot tags during this match. We fast forward near the end, and Ivar hits a handspring double back elbow onto both Street Profits. They go for the Viking experience, but it gets blocked, and Dawkins spears Eric as Ford avoids taking the power slam from Ivar and turns it into a DDT. And they set up Ivar with Ford hitting from the heavens. Eric drills him with a knee to break it up. Hits Dawkins with the knee. Ford gets sent to the floor, and then with Dawkins selling the knee, takes the Viking experience, and they pin the Street Profits in 16 minutes and 24 seconds. This is when I learned this was a non-title match.
Yeah. You know, I thought really good pace early on here, especially like anytime Ivar's in there, like doing like as a big guy doing it like a fast style, he's really fun to watch in really any environment. And so I feel like whenever he's in there, it really survives this empty arena pretty well. But the match definitely went too long for the setting, too long given the lack of stakes involved. I think like something that was half the time would have maintained a faster pace, and I think would have left everybody with a better impression. It might have also left me wanting to see a rematch because this got to the point where I felt like it dragged, which definitely negatively affected my interest in seeing this again.
Yeah, I mean, the story we got last week is that the Viking Raiders have beat these guys at every turn. They never lost the NXT tag titles to them, and the Street Profits can't beat them. But this is a non-title match.
Yeah, well, that's how they built title challenges.
All right. Maybe that should just be the rule. You got to beat the champions twice, so that it can't be a fluke scenario. Charlie is with Drew McIntyre and is asked about facing Murphy tonight, and he doesn't even know what his name is. He's like, "Buddy, Murphy? I don't even know his name. Does he?" He says Murphy is talented, but if he's willing to be sacrificed for his Messiah, and his Messiah is willing to sacrifice him, then who am I to deny the people a slaughtering?
Yeah.
Deep stuff from Drew McIntyre. The Viking Raiders are interviewed. It's not success, it's dominance. They respect the Street Profits, they even like them, but we're just better. And tonight, we extinguished the smoke.
Yes. Yep.
Alistair Black is backstage with a tape promo, and he asks AJ how it felt to be buried 6 feet deep, clawing for a way out, being swallowed by darkness. And he goes on to say, I'll tell you one thing it didn't do. It didn't make you more humble. Because now you're talking about throwing me off a building on Sunday. And if you happen to throw me off this building, you better pray that I don't get back up. Because I'm going to climb that ladder, take that contract, and AJ will wish he was buried deeper than just 6 feet. So the man's very confident that falling off of this giant building is not a guarantee that it would kill him.
They're really building up this, falling off the building thing.
That was like the hard push tonight, is that someone might fall off this thing.
Yeah, I mean, that really is the risk involved in having a match on a roof, isn't it?
We know 400,000 plus of you signed up for free. And we know most of you probably are dropping your subscription this week. But you might miss a man falling off a building on Sunday.
Well, listen, the precedent has been set for a wrestler falling off the roof and then surviving.
Big Show should really be in this match.
They
for
should
historical significance.
They should interview him. Here's how you survive a fall off a building.
Dude, he not only survived that, he came back for the main event that night.
Obviously, Alistair Black was, has somebody to look up to for this match. Yeah. I don't know. Whatever. It was nice to see Alistair Black back in the dark room, cutting a promo. This time they made some changes, though. Instead of sitting down, he's standing. He stood here. And then, instead of silence in the background, they put a Brian Eno ambient soundtrack on. All changes that, I guess, I thought helped.
You know what the problem is? I can't take a guy sitting seriously. You got to be standing. That was the problem. He was sitting. Problem solved.
You got to stretch. You got to stand up every 15 minutes. Standing
you look
desk.
Tiny down there.
Maybe he got a standing desk.
Okay, after that, we got my favorite promo of 2020. Rey Mysterio. He starts talking about this Money in the Bank ladder match, this unique match that will happen and end on a roof. Yeah, I said roof. One bad decision, that's all I wrote. He's literally preparing for potential death on Sunday. It is the riskiest match of my career. I could die, but there's a briefcase, you see, and it contains a contract for a match, anytime, any place. And my career is closer to the end than the beginning. In my head, I just swapped out the word career for life, because that's what he was basically saying here, is that, you know what? All of us are going to die eventually, so we've got to look at what we have left to live for. And this contract might qualify. He's unsure how many more title chances he has left in his career. It's risky, but the risk is worth the reward.
Ka-ching.
Oh my God, dude. I watched this multiple times. This was just unbelievably great.
I will say, if we're going to compare this to Mandy Rose, I think Ray almost made it work. And I think that is the true sign of a talent, of somebody who can effectively read these scripted promos in an effective manner.
One bad decision, and that's all I wrote.
No, I'm going to be watching the show expecting somebody to when they do it cinematic style. Really, they could do anything.
You really could have someone just fly off the roof with some get license out cutting crew, and you could just play Died in My Arms as someone's just plunging off the roof, and that's the final visual of the match.
They could be pushed off, and then they could be floating back up onto the roof.
That is very possible. They could grow wings.
But it would be silly if they started to fly, but then didn't just fly to get the briefcase.
Yeah, that's true. You would have to maybe someone saves them that's on wings. Like, this hacker flies and comes to the rescue. Yeah.
Oh, the hacker fly.
I don't know. I'm just trying to see someone that like has the coordinates and is.
Which hacker are you talking about?
The guy on SmackDown.
Oh, like that, the Ali thing.
Yeah,
he should come back with wings. Sure. All right.
Well, this will be something on Sunday.
I'm intrigued. I'm very curious.
Charlotte Flair came out and said, "I am the hardest working woman in any industry."
Okay.
Right now? Really?
Yeah.
She is pulling double duty right now on Mondays and Wednesdays. She's facing Io Shirai this week. She then gave us a lesson in case you don't know who Io Shirai is. They should have put her in a gauntlet match and introduced us to Io Shirai. Liv Morgan comes out, and we got some awkward dialogue here where Morgan is referring to Char and says that she isn't here for Flair to take her seriously. She says she goes to say that she holds herself back from saying the word ass and did that terribly awkward, like catching yourself right before you're supposed to say this. Like, ugh. So then she talks about Charlotte having her... Liv didn't have a dad to walk her to school and born with a silver spoon in her mouth. And sooner or later, I'll be champion. But not yet, because she hasn't figured her out herself yet. She's still figuring things out. Charlotte says, "You don't know who you are, but I know who I am. I'm proud to be Ric Flair's daughter and have a silver spoon." And Liv ends up challenging her to a match.
Yeah. I think Liv here was trying to do the, like the John Cena ruthless aggression type of promo to Kurt Angle. That's her role. She's the babyface coming out here trying to challenge the person at the top of the mountain. But I found Liv's promo like a little heelish, not really consistent with, I think, the babyface character that she's been recently portraying. She came out here basically like being totally ignorant of like Charlotte's credentials, resorting to, the same tired criticisms of her being born with a silver spoon. When we're talking about Charlotte, who I think by this point any fan would recognize has repeatedly over and over defeated those criticisms. She's earned the respect of the crowd. And to hear like your babyface basically resort to like low-hanging fruit to criticize, this heel, I feel like didn't make Liv look very sympathetic. Like I think a babyface promo would have been Liv's coming out here and saying, "Charlotte, I really respect you. I respect all your credentials, and I, blah 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 blah. But, I feel underestimated, and in order for me to move to my next chapter of my life, I need to beat you." Something like that. Instead, it was like, it did not come across, like she came here almost a little too cocky and almost just very dismissive. And it didn't really make me want to cheer for her.
So what you would have preferred would have been a freestyle rap on Charlotte.
Freestyle rap?
She goes to the next generation of John Cena.
Oh, yeah. And then she could come out as Hulk Hogan.
God, every week she goes through a new character because she's trying to find herself. She's just a wild millennial.
This was the next day. They taped this the next day.
No, they taped it the day.
Oh, it was the same day?
I think it was the same day.
So, I mean, really, how do you go from last week, where her last words were, "I'm still trying to figure out who I am," to something like this? There's no flow between that and this.
Well, it's, you can't, these millennials aren't, they're unpredictable.
I mean, as part of finding yourself, you could have easily said, "I need to challenge the best. I need to challenge Charlotte Flair." But it just felt like there was real disconnect between last week and this.
They ran a promo video for Jinder Mahal, ending with Jinder promising that he will go down as the greatest of all time. There's still time.
Yep.
Charlotte and Liv Morgan. Flair was controlling the match until Morgan came back and landed a Rana and stopped the clothesline Charlotte did, and then stomped her. They go through the commercial. Charlotte flips her over with an inverted triangle, and then Morgan gets up, landing a Shining Wizard, jawbreaker, comes off the ropes with the double knees to the face, and then goes for another Hurricane Rana, but this time Charlotte counters with a sit-out powerbomb. Morgan kicks out, and Flair then catches her off the turnbuckle, applying the Boston Crab, forcing Liv to get to the ropes. Morgan then scales the ropes into a code breaker off the turnbuckle for her big near fall, sets up for Oblivion, but Flair capitalizes and catches her as she misses running into the ropes and applies the figure eight for the tap out just under 12 minutes.
I thought it was a good match. It didn't overstay its welcome. I thought it was thoroughly entertaining. You had the announcers, afterwards putting over Liv Morgan as if this was a major performance. So I thought this was like the exact type of underdog performance you'd want from somebody answering an open challenge. I just didn't like the promo at the beginning. But the story I thought in the match was strong. Like, this felt like it was a blue belt who just got her purple belt, perhaps. And now she's improved, feeling all the confidence in the world. And now she wants to challenge the black belt. She's really, though, to me, like, impressed with how much she's progressed here. She was able to pull off some really ambitious, unique looking offense, including that code breaker off the turnbuckle.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, she looks great. It's just the character that I think really needs work.
Yeah, I mean, she has improved noticeably, and it's also, she's not going with like a conservative style either. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a large margin for error with some of the, like, her ambitious stuff that could look awful. But she has shown it, and it's not just, it's been smart as well, pairing her with like the likes of Natalya, but we have seen it with like other opponents as well, beyond Charlotte, beyond Natalya, that, she has made concerted improvements, and I think it's very noticeable. Mm-hmm. I look forward to seeing like where she progresses, because she's obviously someone that is kind of in that mix at the moment of, pushed women on the Raw side. Then to preview the big ladder match, we got B-roll of WWE headquarters, and then we made our way into the WWE headquarters cafeteria, where there, in plain sight, was a bottle of sriracha.
There you go. Yeah, sriracha mayo. Try it out. I've had a lot of people actually message me about that. Oh boy, actually.
Really?
Yeah. Either trying it or like saying that they do it too. So, I really have to think about opening this restaurant.
I all my feedback was on the Sleep app.
Oh really?
Yeah.
How are you doing, by the way?
To be honest, I've forgotten to use it the last few nights. But
come on.
Yeah, it's
Well, how are other people doing? Have they been sending you their reports?
No, they were more so asking what the app was called. That's the kind of dialogue I get with people.
Okay. I'm excited for this match just to see like a tour of Titan Towers.
I'm sure it's going to be really well put together. I mean, whatever they have to work with, I think they're going to turn it into something entertaining.
But I mean, I want to see the layout of these rooms. I want to see the offices. I want to see what the type of shit they have in the walls. I want to see the gym. The gym where they used to film those old vignettes.
Are they going to get Paul's magic spray for the entire headquarters?
They might just demolish the thing right afterwards. Well, I guess they can't.
No, they don't have a new one to go to yet.
You're right.
We're stuck with this one.
Paul's magic spray it is then. That's how they should market it, really.
Drew McIntyre Murphy was our final match of the night. Seth Rollins was watching on the ramp. Drew's just destroying this guy until they go to the floor, and Drew is momentarily distracted, so Murphy got into some offense, sent him into the post. But then Drew immediately fights back. It seemed like they did not want Drew selling here for any prolonged period. It was like pretty much Drew destroying this guy. Murphy slid free and powerbombed him off the turnbuckle, and then Murphy goes to do the countdown, but instead Drew hears those numbers, and it triggers the Claymore, and he catches Murphy and pins him in 6 minutes, 9 seconds.
Good little, I would even classify this really as a squash. And I think it's exactly what you want for Drew McIntyre. Like, he continues to just look like a total badass. I love how they refuse to make him look weak. Like it's so against their traditional booking of baby faces. They are booking him like a babyface Brock Lesnar, and I think that's something fresh.
I think that they're utilizing. It's not so much that it's I see like the differences. Like they have tried this with like your baby faces, but there's been so much pushback to it that we're not getting with Drew. And I think that Drew is like, he really works in this role. As like, it's very tough to be like the ass kicking babyface that doesn't get, backlash from fans. And right now, all you can go with are kind of people that are watching the show from home, but you really don't get that negative sentiment towards Drew right now. This is also like this is the death segment on Raw at the end. Like, I think last week's final quarter might have been the lowest in Raw's history. Like, that's the level that we're hitting by this final quarter of the third hour.
Interesting.
The music ends and it's just silent. Drew is challenging Seth to come in the ring and fight him. He's getting on his knees and Rollins just goes to walk out. So Drew turns his back. He's calling him a coward. When he turns around, back is Rollins and he super kicks him. And they didn't cut to black here. It was Drew that got hit here with the super kick. And Rollins says that this is bigger than me and bigger than you. He stares at the title. He goes to pick it up. And then he goes for a stomp, but gets caught and hit with a Glasgow kiss. And Drew is getting ready to hit him with the Claymore, and Seth retreats and goes to the floor. Very like the opposite of what you would expect in your final segment here. It was like Drew getting the final word, save for the Claymore. Like, that's really his objective, is to beat this guy with the Claymore, but not leaving him laying or anything like that to set up Seth as this threat. I mean, he's very much in the role of, I am victim number one in the Drew McIntyre title run.
Yeah, and it feels really out of place because, again, it's so different from the type of booking that they usually do for baby faces. But I think it comes at a time like where the world is really sick of the Brock Lesnar type of thing. They're sick of baby faces just constantly looking weak and heels always getting heat. It's the timing of the character that I think makes it work right now. It definitely is a little too bad that we don't have a crowd there to really validate whether or not this is working, because it really does, kind of feel theoretical right now, whether or not he's really truly being accepted as a lead.
So that was Raw. I don't know. I think that these shows are getting tougher each week. But nothing's changing. It's just really wearing thin to me, these matches.
I found this one a little tougher than usual because I think some of the matches just really weren't that great. Some of them were definitely pretty decent. I enjoyed Morgan Charlotte. I enjoyed the main event. But some of them definitely flirted with being too long. And I include the Gauntlet match there. I include the Street Profits Viking Raiders match. And then talking segments that I think weren't really that great for the most part.
Yeah, it just seems everything is, for Money in the Bank, really focused just on the ladder match concept, which, I mean, that is what you should be pushing as the big thing. Now, last week, 1,817,000 viewers. Are you going higher or lower?
Well, I learned my lesson. I think it's going to be lower this week.
I feel I'm going to say it stays even or above, okay? I think that they will avoid hitting a new low.
You always want to make me look bad, don't you?
No, I'm just
I'm
giving you my thought. But I can't honestly say, like, to be honest, like, do you feel it was like bringing back AJ in the way in which they did? I don't quite understand what the value is in a surprise in this environment. You're forfeiting the surprise pop, and you're only taking away anything that might lure a viewer to come in and check something out for someone that's coming back. So I don't quite understand why you keep saying, like, I understand the gauntlet in and of itself. Like, you can't really say, hey, AJ's coming back next week to be the final entrant in the gauntlet, but come up with such a way you announce the participants, and including AJ Styles returns next week for the first time since the Boneyard match. I don't know what the value is of surprises in this setting.
Well, even though there might not be a surprise pop in the arena, I don't think you should really discount the surprise reaction with the audience or online. Oh my God, AJ Styles showed up this week. I still think there's some merit to that. You ultimately want to still make an entertaining show with the surprising moment here and there. I mean, we're also assuming AJ would make any sort of difference to the rating, which I don't think so. It's really been a month anyway. It would be one thing if you said AJ Styles shows up from the dead and he's going to be completely different. You're going to see the zombie version of AJ Styles. That might interest somebody, but if it was just AJ Styles showing up like this, I don't think that makes a difference.
This is not going to be WWE AJ Styles. It's Mixer account AJ Styles, and he's going to be open and honest about everything he's thinking.
Sure. Yeah, that would be fresh. That would be different.
All right, well, we'll see what that Raw number is. I would say if it continues to go down, there's going to be we're hitting the bottom.
All right. This is like a limbo. It's a game of limbo.
How low can Raw go? Tonight's feedback at forum.postwrestling.com. Do you think the show's getting a pass or a fail? Have you looked?
Well, I've already looked, yeah.
A 4.2.
That's worse than the rating for Jerry Lawler's Restaurant.
Ooh. Well, let's see what Andrew from Cape Breton has to say. I could have sworn the Viking Raiders versus Street Profits was for the tag titles. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention, but the Raiders going on about how the Street Profits never beat them. Maybe I just assumed they would get a title match. The show was okay tonight. The Gauntlet match made me think, why are we bringing in some of these people? I hope Shelton Benjamin didn't have to travel to Raw from far away. Poor Akira Tozawa apparently fights for the jobber title on NXT based on his treatment on Raw. Lastly, this was brought up last week, but the dialogue they give Liv Morgan makes me believe the writers should not exist in wrestling. I'd rather see someone screw up what they were supposed to say off the top of his head than have someone read their badly scripted lines perfectly. 5 out of 10 show. Now, to that, I would counter that there has also been a lot of good promos that we have seen of late, and I would say that not all of them I would categorize as ones that are just going out there, even ones with bullet points, that it's often the bad promos that get the spotlight, and yet when we're talking about Sonya Deville with Mandy Rose, I mean, that to me, that was a fantastic segment and got a lot of praise, deservedly so.
Absolutely. We got Alex from Portland who says, what an odd situation Lana is in. She enters into an angle where she gets with Lashley and makes it with him in front of Rusev, her real-life husband. Rusev loses the feud and gets released. Meanwhile, Lana's services are seemingly no longer wanted by Lashley. I'm curious what the end result of this story is. One story I thought was done was Edge and Orton. I'm sure both men want to put on a better match than what they had at Mania, but it feels far too early to go back to that. Liv is improving, tag matches were good, and we have reasons to tune in next Monday. I really hope we get a spot next Sunday where Hornswoggle tries to climb a ladder but is grabbed by Corbin, stuffed in a pillowcase, and tossed off the roof. My question: it seems silly that WWE built a ring on top of their headquarters for just one match, or is it two? Could you see WWE holding an entire pay-per-view on their roof? If they're really wanting to capture the interest of network subscribers, the first all-ever roof pay-per-view might do the trick.
That's not happening.
Yeah, I can certainly see them building a ring on top of their headquarters for just one match.
Adam, this show was going along at a pace that made me question my viewing habits. Then, at around 10:10 Eastern Time, the heavens opened up. A man wearing a necklace resembling the Deathly Hallows from Harry Potter was not in his room, but appeared as if out of thin air. What did he say? I could not care less. All I know is that tonight in the post office, one man will be allowed to achieve greatness. Like Jordan on the floor in Monte Carlo in 1992, John Pollock will display why he is the alpha amongst males, the alpha amongst alphas, when he gets to recite the words spoken by Alistair Black. By the time this is being read, he would have already shown Tony Kukoc why the duo known as Pollock and Ting are the greatest parts of Monday nights. Well, I think I definitely let you down. I wasn't as inspired with the Alistair Black promo. I thought it was much more.
As always.
It was just like another promo. He asks, what was the greater event to happen in the Georgia Dome in 1998? Jordan's last game in Atlanta with the Bulls or Goldberg Hogan on Nitro later that year. Mind you, Jordan had 34 points that night and shot 500 from the field.
I don't know. Well,
I would say Jordan's last game with the Bulls would carry much more cultural significance.
All right, then. We have Jordan Yates, who says, we have gathered here today to discuss Raw. I get the feeling the writers feel it too, but this is a chore to sit through each week, and thank you guys for doing so. AJ was a nice surprise in the match tonight, and now he's added to the match on Sunday. I could see him winning. I feel like WWE missed an opportunity not to have Andrade in Money in the Bank, given his little feud with McIntyre over the past month. What is more likely to bounce back, the people coming back to the arenas or the ratings for WWE?
Sorry, the
people or ratings. Which one will come back first?
Oh, I think it's going to be once they let's just say 3 months from now that 3 months is probably being way too conservative. Probably be a lot longer than that. But regardless of the time frame, when arenas are open again, I think it's going to take a while for this audience to just magically come back on for television viewership. And at arenas. I think that it's like, if we're talking about months of Raw, like 1.8 million is not going to be the floor. If we're talking 6 more months of these empty arena shows, it will go lower. And it's not just going to be flip a switch and suddenly we're doing 2.4 million each Monday. That's going to take a long time. And I do wonder about like that long of an effect. And I would say that when they are able to do that first show, I think you build it up to be the biggest show imaginable that you can possibly do. That it's treated like your Raw 1000 or something huge. And it has to be more than just all the legends from the past. Like, I think you have to build this thing up as like a gigantic show for Raw and SmackDown that week. And I would say like the focus needs to be television more so than your pay-per-views, more than anything. I think you have to really look at rebuilding your television audience, because it's going to take a lot to break the new habits of people finding other things to do on Mondays and Fridays that they're obviously doing right now.
I think it'll take time either way, and I think it'll be helped by any sort of significant events you already have in the schedule. SummerSlam at this point is certainly in doubt, and I don't know if places will be open by then. But, you know, beyond SummerSlam, what is what is the next big, I would say, mainstream show that they have? It might be the Royal Rumble. We might have to be, waiting all the way until a moment like that for really things to pick up. It might even be as long as next year's WrestleMania cycle.
Mm-hmm. So I think for the live event attendance, I think it's very likely that when arenas open, it's not going to be at 100% capacity. I think you're not going to see that, and I think, like, Vince McMahon was right on the call that they have to really look at slashing ticket prices significantly, I would say, just to get people in the door. You don't want to scare people off with high ticket prices if you're trying to attract them to come back for the live event experience.
Sure.
Last one here is Matt. He writes, I'm not sure if I'm suffering from the Mandela effect because I swear I remember Ricochet winning the United States title from Samoa Joe and later beating Seth Rollins and Bobby Lashley to challenge for the championship. Now all I see is a jobber who lost to Brock Lesnar in spectacular fashion, was moved to main events, and then came back to Raw to be pinned by Brendan Vink. Moved to main event, the show, and then came back to Raw to be pinned by Brendan Vink. I'm at a loss for words.
Well, again, it helps if you can forget about all that for Ricochet. And just think about Ricochet as this debuting young wrestler who has, struggled and fought hard his way from main event. Now he is making his Raw debut as part of a brand new tag team with Cedric Alexander. If you watch it under that lens, you can enjoy his performances with a lot more optimism. Because certainly if you think about the potential of what he could have been and where he was at, even considering the limited level he was at even before that, and you're watching this now, it's tough. He's really starting from the bottom.
I mean, he could have been defined by his height with a new gimmick. So, I mean, there's that.
Yeah. Do you think when is Chad Gable supposed to come back, and do you think he'll probably still have the gimmick? Wouldn't he?
I can't imagine he would not have the gimmick.
Okay.
Last thing before we get out of here, did you watch any of The Last Dance this weekend?
I did. I did not watch
with trepidation.
I did not watch the episodes that other people probably watched.
Oh, what are you talking about, Wai?
I'm a week ahead of everybody else, so I'm sorry. I like if you were to ask me, you can jog my memory about what I saw a week ago, but I'm not gonna have very deep analysis.
I would say of the 2 episodes from this weekend, I would say the highlights would have been, or like the main things focused upon. Off the top, the opening minutes with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, I thought that was like really something, and even more interesting the fact that they did not they finished editing that sequence like 10 days before Kobe died, and they did not change anything about that other than they added the in memory of at the beginning. So that was not something that was, put together in hindsight after Jordan spoke at his funeral or with any of that. That was done while Kobe was still alive, that scene.
Right. That is pretty incredible and very sad. David Stern too appears in this documentary and seems like fresh interviews.
Yep.
So I guess it just kind of tells you how really just adds to the significance of this documentary.
Yeah, this goes through the 92-93 season where they beat the Suns in the finals, and it's sort of the first episode is kind of the rise of Michael Jordan as this commercial commodity and in demand by everyone. And then the next episode is more so the reality of being in that spotlight and being under that pressure that he's feeling. And I thought it was a very poignant scene where he's in his hotel room on the couch, and you can see this dude has just had it with this, and he is ready to be done. And that's, it's interesting to watch the camera crew that's following him around and the life that these, like, once you reach this level, what your life becomes. And it's almost the public believes that when you are of this level and you are making this money, you work for us. And it really is an analysis of like how celebrities and celebrity athletes, like how they are handled.
Absolutely. Yeah, that part, all this stuff I find, I think that's what makes this documentary so fascinating, is because we're talking not just about a sports athlete, we're talking about one of the biggest celebrities like in modern history. And, what I think is so incredible is how somebody is able to manage that level of attention, that level of fame, and that level of expectation while still managing to over deliver on expectations for in the better part of an entire decade. To see like the stuff with Nike, I found really fascinating. I mean, just the amount of impact the band has had, not just on sports, but really like on youth culture, on like fashion even, is really cool. The stuff with the Dream Team I thought was really interesting as well.
Poor Isaiah, man. Isaiah just getting man.
Even online?
I think Isaiah Thomas has grown into like the villain of the series, way above Jerry Krause.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I think you're exposing, the snub. Is that what they call it? Like when he didn't shake their hand.
Well, the handshake, and then he gets left off the Dream Team, and
Wait a second, but I mean, the Dream Team. I feel like people, you almost sympathize with Isaiah for that.
Oh, I'm just saying, like he's very much just presented as like the foil of Michael Jordan. Like it's, I think that there's a lot that you can feel sympathy towards Isaiah Thomas, and I think he is like a underappreciated player for his part. And I also went and watched that 30 for 30 on Bad Boys, and it's excellent. Like it's such a great add-on to this series. It's like 2 hours on that Pistons dynasty. And it's interesting that we look at the major dynasties from like the Celtics to the Lakers to the Bulls. And it's like, you just had this period where people just don't look at the Pistons at all during this time. And man, were they an entertaining team that you understood why so much of the league totally hated these guys.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that grudge like still last, at least, from watching some of these interviews.
Yeah, and just getting back to like the media side, and it's like it was always something that I felt like just being around, specifically like a George St. Pierre or like the largest of these MMA fighters, and seeing firsthand what the obligations of the job that would be, where fight week, like an Anthony Pettis who's fighting Saturday in Las Vegas is flown to Toronto to come do a whole batch of media interviews. And I'm just thinking, like, this guy's cutting weight. And it's like, yes, there's the part, like, this is a part of the job, but it's also one where I look at, is this the most logical thing to be doing in terms of, like, I completely understand when media outlets get turned down for interviews. Like, you can't just put these people in front of every single outlet, and these people are turned into robots. And there's no doubt why so many people hit that burnout factor. And we look at them and be like, oh man, they've really got an attitude now, or they've turned on the media. It's like, no, these people are going through ungodly lives at this point where they are just going on fumes. And there's not going to be a whole ton of sympathy for people in these positions, but I certainly have some.
Well, I certainly felt like, and this might even be more the case in the later episodes, but I certainly felt like much of this documentary was Jordan's critique on the media and how the media, treated him at certain parts.
With the gambling stuff, that they go into it more than I thought that they would in this.
And the stuff even like, how it relates to his father's death and, We're
not there yet.
Yeah. Anyway, the stuff in the later episodes. I mean, I really found much of this to be a critique on the media's treatment of like celebrities and athletes, and specifically Jordan himself. And it really, you and I working as part of this, certainly, like, I've had several thoughts watching this about my responsibility when I do a show like this. Certainly on a much smaller scale, of course, than something like Michael Jordan had to deal with. But like, I constantly ask myself, like, hey, like, what impact are the words that I'm saying? What impact do they have? How, what is my role in trying to, number one, be as honest and thoughtful in my critique as possible, while at the same time being fair to, what's going on in these people's lives? How often are we forced to say something simply because we have airtime to fill versus us actually having to say something because we truly believe something? Because, there are certain moments here, like, where I felt like it was people either trying to gain attention or trying to capitalize on just, the conversation in order to say something outlandish. And we certainly see that now in all forms of media. But anyway, it's a really interesting conversation, especially for people like you and I.
Yeah. So those are some highlights from those two episodes. So we've got 4 more left. You less, but 4
more left. 10,
still to
10
air
total. Yes.
Hey, and Sunday night we've got The Last Ride debuting.
Oh, how appropriate. Wow, we have The Last Dance and The Last Ride.
Yeah, they're running this Undertaker documentary. Part 1 will be Sunday after Money in the Bank.
Well, to be fair, Taker had The Last Ride first. Well, actually, no, The Last Dance came before that. Phil Jackson created The Last Dance.
Well, he named it. I guess the documentary project started later in 2017, whereas the Undertaker thing, like, apparently they started filming that before WrestleMania in 2017. So I don't know if that had a working title.
I was more so talking about the name of the move.
Oh, well. Oh, I see what you mean. Right. Yeah. I was just looking at the documentary projects itself. But right, the Phil Jackson would have predated the Undertaker's
Powerbomb.
So there you have it.
The Taker thing looks incredibly fascinating as well. Yeah, I look forward to watching it and talking about that next week.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about that on Monday's show after part 1 airs and everyone gets a chance to see that. So lots of shows coming out. We've got a show out every day this week, so there's going to be plenty of us to hear from. Tuesday, check out the Up Next feed for the review of Lost, the pilot. Is it the first 2 episodes?
It's the pilot, yeah. Episodes 1 and 2. You can leave your feedback right now at forum.postwrestling.com.
And Wai and I will be back Tuesday night with Ask Away, going through the mailbag. So go check out all of that stuff, and we'll speak with you then.